Hey everybody, Robin Knott here. Welcome to our 49 Days of Self-Care, Day 5, talking about communication, doing a thing so I could share myself into groups. If I can find me on Facebook platform, which would be very nice. Hopefully you can hear me okay. Again, we are on Day 5, which we talk about communication and throat chakra healing. And for the best you, we also talk about your truth, like speaking your truth, like self expression. Again, side note, I know some people get kind of wonky on the whole your truth versus the truth. In my acronym, best you, your truth is your opinion. What is true for you? What is for your highest self? To really be able to look deeper into you to see what that means, to not be, and we're going to talk a little bit more about like reactions, like trauma reactions, right? So, not just speaking what comes up for the moment when we get triggered, but how we can speak to that deeper inner truth. I just saw 111 on my screen, meaning I was just on here for a minute and 11 seconds, but just saying those numbers. And my joint vision partner, Iona Mead, talks about relationship freedom today. So, how fitting that we talk about communication and speaking your truth in our relationships, and it's all dealing with the energy in the throat chakra, right? Mm. So, lots to go with today. So, what I mean by your truth in our communication styles, consider this for a moment. We have different communication styles, right? So, we might be assertive, which is a healthy way to communicate, is to be assertive. Let me share with you what my feelings are, or where my thoughts are at, or my level of understanding, or maybe it's what my goals are, or what I'm passionate about, whatever it may be that I'm trying to share with you, right? But I can be assertive, I'm speaking up, I'm not stifling and hiding, but I'm also not forcing, right? Not trying to force you into anything in the process. I'm just speaking for me. Sometimes, I'm speaking for myself, gosh, just hit the 222, how funny. Sometimes, in speaking for myself, I'll just share on my own example. Sometimes when I speak for myself, I find that my human, the ego part of me, had that level of expectation that of whatever the return was going to be from the other person. So as you're communicating with someone, to some degree, you in a sense expect some form of response back, right? Oftentimes we want to be agreed with, depending on what we're talking about. We at least want to be heard, right? And ideally understood is a good thing too. That feels nice when we can be understood by the person we're talking to, right? However, sometimes we're just not. Sometimes we don't understand what other people are saying to us, or they don't understand us, or sometimes we don't communicate it very well, right? Sometimes I don't find the words I'm looking for, or my tone is off, or I'm speaking. I often say, I don't want to say always, I often say I speak in bullet points, like short and brief and just kind of to the point. And sometimes that's taken as like rude or snarky, or um, can't think of the other word I've heard. But either way, it's not taken how it was intended, right? Excuse me. Not everyone communicates the same. Some do very well with having the words and the way to express themselves, and some of us don't. But again, energy, because for me, like calling that out, let me call it out. I know that it is in my awareness, right? Because we want to be aware, assess, and align where we're at, where our energy is. I'm aware that sometimes I don't communicate well because of the way I have stifled myself for a long period of time. So, when I learned and taught myself, in a sense, or was taught myself how to stifle, how to hold back, how to check myself, things got mixed up in there a little bit. And then I didn't then like relearn or allow myself to then communicate it, right? Sorry, I didn't click on comments. Okay. So I want to make sure I wasn't missing anybody there. So this, again, all deals with the energy in our throat and our throat chakra about communication. Not just how we speak, whether we're being assertive, aggressive, or passive aggressive, maybe with our body language, but also how we listen. Listening is a big part of communication. in all of our relationships, including that relationship with ourselves. Do we listen to our body to hear what it's saying that we need? Do we listen to our energy body, which includes like memories and emotions, to hear what we need? People talk about like inner child work or shadow work, whatever terms that you use. It's basically the stuff, an energetic block, kind of hung up, stuck in our energy field due to our memories or our life experiences or unprocessed emotions and thoughts and things that need our attention. So, whatever terms we use, again, whether it's inner child or it's shadow work or whichever, when it's coming up to the surface, do we pay attention? Do we listen to it or do we block it out, right? Communication within ourselves, communication with God, source, creator. Do we listen? I don't know who coined the phrase, but I really loved it. How when they talked about praying was speaking to, right? So whether we're speaking to God or Iona says speaking into existence, like talking it out in the universe, but we're speaking it out. But then listening, right? Meditation is listening, listening to that. When we ask, it is given. Do we hear it? Do we notice? Do we see it? All of that is part of communication. There she is. Iona says, "Hey, love. Hey, beautiful." I don't know how much you heard, but I was on my roll. I was on a roll there for a minute. Excuse me. So today, and you were right, in Iona's live today, she talked about relationships, and I have two separate acronyms. So really making that combination, and excuse me, I'm just bringing it up because you mentioned it yesterday, like trying to remember mine as well. And it's kind of funny in a way, um, just because of the evolution, right? How much, so much has evolved, and all the connections and how they fit, and it's such a beautiful process. But in our relationships and that speaking out. So yeah, throat chakra healing, right? Speaking up for ourselves, speaking your truth. Your truth is part of that, my Best You acronym. The Y for you and Best You. And then communication for self-care, the C in care, self-care. So all of those go hand in hand. So I was just kind of covering like if we speak assertively, if we speak aggressively or passive aggressively, and then also listening, because oftentimes I think that we either just kind of miss it or don't really make the connection that listening is also part of communication. Excuse me. So do we listen to actively hear, what other people are trying to say? Or are we listening to react and respond, right? So I've admitted many times before that in the past I felt in a sense in reflection, I feel like I was then a cat almost like ready to pounce, listening for those key words like that aha or gotcha moment or that quick what I'm, as you're talking, I'm thinking of what I'm going to say as a response to it. So in the process of doing all of that, I'm really missing the essence of what someone else is sharing then, right? I'm not really fully hearing what's being said, where they're at, how they think, how they feel, what their experience is, or whatever it is that they're trying to share with me because I'm in my head doing something different, right? Does that make sense? Hopefully it does. So keeping that energy clear, journaling through these processes, I think is an amazing way to be aware of our energy, to assess where it's at, and then again to align with it, right? Are there things that I need to say that I'm not saying that are very important to me? Have I noticed times when I reacted instead of really being aware of what's going on, in my situations? Um, because we do that, right? Our human has that defense. So sometimes it's in that defense mode, right? I catch myself doing that. Like if I feel like something feels like criticism, I feel defensive. That criticism has been a big thing, right? Like that's probably one of my boulders in life that I'm still clearing away. Gosh, it just brought up. Do you remember Iona? I used to say spiritual archaeologist. I haven't said that in a long time, but that just came back again. Like clearing away layer by layer. And sometimes it's just light layers of dust, and other times we can really, break up some chunks and clear that away. But I think for me, criticism is kind of a big boulder. And yeah, still moving through those layers. So when something sounds like all of a sudden throat chakra, and I can hear just on this live shifts in my voice and my tone, how it feels when I speak. Like I had those raspy moments there for a moment, right? As it clears up, or if there feels like almost tension in the throat. It's very interesting. So, in our process of clearing the energy in the throat chakra, you may notice some detox type symptoms. So, what I notice is that scratchiness. It's like it's breaking up. And it's not to silence me. It's like, keep going, clear it out. You're just breaking it up, right? Like you're doing what you're supposed to be doing and breaking it up. Or again, the shifts in the tone or sound of my voice. Um, yeah, all of that. It's very interesting. Let me see what Iona says. Iona says, I hear that with communication, and my communication has gotten better, but you bringing it to my awareness. Has it? Well, you helped me with mine. That's for darn sure. I think you speak and share very clear and fluently, and like to me, it seems like words flow very good for you. And I don't know if you were on yet or not, but I was talking about sometimes I've had a tendency, and I still do, to speak in like bullet point. I call it bullet points, like very short, brief, to the point. And there's no ick intended by that. It's just it's kind of how I've taught myself to speak over a period of time, right? Based on programs and conditions. So all those times when I had felt, silenced, and then some of it was a skill that I misused in a sense for myself. So I had learned a skill to what they say, pick your battles, or like to pause before speaking. Because in that time, that was my process of learning that I reacted. So to stop or interrupt the reaction was to pause, really hear and listen to what someone else is saying before I speak so that I can actually process what's being said and have it not just be my own defense and reaction. That in itself is an amazing communication skill. And it's a great way to manage our own emotions and our own thoughts and keeping ourselves in check. Like that in itself is a very healthy process. But then what I meant by overused it is instead of picking my battles, I just didn't. Then I just stifled altogether, right? I just stopped communicating, or I would listen but not share back. So then it's just weird how, again, this is just reflection of my own communication styles and how they had been and how they've changed over the years. Because there was a time well before that, like I've talked about my snarky teen years or early 20s, but a lot of that was reaction and defenses and projections too. But I spoke a lot. I had lots to say and I didn't hold back. But it was very human ego type of communication at that point in time too. So finding that balance, if you will, right? To clear out the gunky stuff so that we can actually communicate well your truth. Again, highest truth, not that truth. That was my ego truth. I want to speak my highest truth from the best you, if that makes sense. Ayana says, I know the defensiveness. Yeah, it doesn't feel good for us, for the people on the receiving end. Absolutely not. And it doesn't really feel good in being the defensive person either, right? Because there's a reason why we're defensive. Because for whatever reason, something felt like sharp and pokey and icky. So, I mean, it's twofold. It's icky all the way around for sure. I know when we have that engagement. I know when you go quiet, and I know when I have not been clear in my communication. Yeah, see that stifle, right? That quiet. But again, sometimes it's just that pause because in that pause when I'm quiet, that gives me time to process. And then I can go back and like if it's a voice note, I can hear your message again and hear it more clearly to actually hear what you're saying. Or sometimes before I even get to that point, you will then go ahead and add more clarity to it, right? So that it works out well. But do you hear this? Like, I hope that whoever watches this and between us, as we share how we communicate and how we are aware of these things in our communication, that's the point, right? It is a process, and we do learn other people's communication styles as we learn our own communication style. And part of that communication is being able to say these things, to be able to share, right? To be able to say, I notice when, and this is how I try to engage it, and this is how I try to engage it, or this is how I try to prevent that, you know, defensiveness from being projected out or whatever it may be. It's a process. Okay, okay, next one, let me see. Iona says, my tough love is harsh sometimes. Sometimes it's tough love and sometimes just our own stuff, right? I'm a direct speaker and it goes down like a lead balloon at times for a moment. I'm sorry for laughing, but I've heard that phrase before. Went down like a lead balloon. Balance is massive. It really is. And that flow, inflow and outflow, right? Communication works the same. Like we talk about financial freedom on Sundays and financially money, the energy of money or support or you know, in whatever form of help with or for others, but having that outflow and inflow, not always giving, but also receiving, right? Communication works the same way. We share back and forth and inflow and outflow, and we don't all communicate the same. And we do all have our stuff in some ways, or sometimes it's just a timing of a thing, then how it's taken, or right? Sometimes it's deep and sometimes it's surface. Doesn't matter. Communication is about inflow and outflow, and it's a shared experience. It's not one way, right? It's teaching me too. So thank you. Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. Exactly. The process and love always. Exactly. It's not about spewing and projecting all the hurt and, or hate or icky, gross feelings. It's about learning, right? Learning and processing and clearing and moving through it. And what I do love is, regardless, we figure it out. Like it's figured out. So it's not left, even if there might be a moment of pause because, like for me, I need time to process. But it's not just left, if that makes sense. Like some people just, shut down completely and not come back to it. That's very different than just taking a step back or, shifting into an observer mode to look at self or look at, how you're hearing something, how you're seeing something, or how you're receiving something, because how we receive it isn't always how it's intended, is it? Like you and I think we all know that when sometimes we try to offer something and our intentions are good. I touched on that a little bit yesterday, was it? When I was talking about certain posts, or was it the day before when it felt kind of icky? Like being in that observer mode and seeing how people were commenting on a post, I think the intentions were really good, but yet how it was relayed was not, right? Or how it's received. Sometimes it can be shared just fine, but how we receive it can be different. It's uh, relationships and communication are not always easy. So true. Inflow and outflow, right? I think so. We speak and we listen and we learn and we grow and we share. And again, sometimes there's power in the pause, right? Pause is not always a bad thing. So I'm smiling because I did not make that connection before. So Iona has talked about the pause before, like in business, right? Sometimes, however, things are going on in our business or life occurs, and then we take a pause from certain parts of a business, and then, or, and it may look to some like failure to ourselves. It may look like failure. And in our communication, sometimes it may look like failure or more than what it's intended to be. But there's power in a pause. Excuse me. We also have found that when things seem like it's paused or pulled back, and then we have to come back into it. Or not have to come back in, but like there is that pause moment, and we think it's a failure moment. When we come back into it, it's like, oh, I see. I had to pick up something in that process, right? Divinely led wasn't meant to be there just yet because I needed this. That happens in our communication too. Iona says, I want that communication in my romantic relationship again. That piece was awesome for me and my twin flame unit. We knew our intentions were good. That is amazing. I love that. I do love that. I hope to experience that in my next relationship. I'll just say it like that because you know about how actively I'm participating in that whole journey right now. And I'm laughing because for those of you who may not know, I'm not. But it is like, and that's part of the reason I think, because in my own reflection, people that I connected with, intentions weren't always good. And that's another interesting aspect. Sometimes people can communicate well with really icky intentions, right? So trusting your listening to yourself, listening to your higher, listening to those what we call red flags, right? Listening to that guidance. I wish I could show you what I just saw flash in my gosh. I just saw like my highest self with this big flag, red flag, beating me on the because I don't listen. I'm sorry, but that was hilarious. It seemed almost random, but it just so clearly I have tears in my eyes. Oh my goodness. And it's like literally what I saw though, like if I could see my highest self with this big, I could just like pay attention. Don't ignore them. Oh wow. Massive power in a pause. Isn't there though? Like for reals. Oh, it was hilarious. Like I said, I wish sometimes, and I have these glimpses of visuals. I really wish I could project that or portray that out where you all could see it because that one was a good one. It really made me laugh. It was comical. I don't know if other people find it comical, but I certainly did. Um, I can appreciate that very, very much. And sorry, notification. Want to make sure it wasn't anything like vital or important. Um, I mean, it is important. It was YouTube telling me that I'm live, so that's important, right? But seriously, so that's another valid point that if we want to go deeper in our own energy healing lifestyle and our journaling process, and as we heal our layers, because we need to be aware of what's going on. So awareness doesn't align. In that awareness, it's not even just other people, how we communicate with other people and listening to other people, but with ourselves, right? And really listening and paying attention to those signs or those cues that we receive or that guidance that we get. So whether it's that tap on the shoulder that's like, hey, over here, or something beating you on the head with a big old flag, to not ignore them. I'm going to laugh about that for a little while, I think. Iona says, oh, yes. And I was being pushy for asking a reasonable question, and another man saying that man just isn't ready for commitment. Oh, right. Right? Yeah, if someone's trying to shut you down because you're trying to communicate or you're asking a question, it does make you then wonder what the problem is, right? Like, why would that be a problem to have that to question, especially if you're looking for your level of compatibility. Like, that's the whole point of that process is to get to know each other, what you both are looking for, right? So when somebody wants to shut it down, what are they avoiding? It was a huge, like literally a huge visual. The flag was huge. Oh my goodness, it was great. It was great. I needed that laugh today. I felt some ick today. You probably picked up on that, Iona, but I felt some ick today. Not terrible, but just some ick. I also fell asleep or back to sleep. So I wake up at 4 a.m., right, to give my mom a dose of medication. And I was up for a little bit, but then I did fall back to sleep. I put on like a little, I say a little because it was on my phone, but I put on a video, a Kyle Cease video. I really enjoyed it. I could resonate with a lot that was being said, but I fell asleep to it. So I'm not sure what I would maybe have, dreamt about after that or what I got into after that in my sleep. But when I woke up, I was like, just not sure. I don't know. It's kind of hard to explain. But finding ways to listen to what we need, right? I needed to hear some things in that video. So maybe it was just some leftover of the connections made and releasing it, right? Because releasing doesn't always feel great. So if you guys saw that little video I shared, it wasn't my video, but I shared it on my Facebook profile of what a spiritual awakening looks like, and it's got the dude rolling, falling and rolling and flipping down a hill, and you stop and you think you're okay, and you're not. You're like, whoa, and then boom, you go down some more. You try to hold on, and it's just not happening. You just keep on going. So things like that, which is healing, kind of feels like that. Another example I used to share with healing was if you get a cut, right? Because many of us can relate to this. If you get a cut and maybe it's deeper than you thought or whatever, and it happens to get infected, when you clean that cut out, it hurts, right? It hurts. It's actually more painful cleaning it out after it got infected than when it initially first happened. Healing sometimes is like that, right? The process can hurt. It's after it's healed, when all that's left is a scar, that is not so painful. It's after that that we can look at it and even tell our stories about it, right? Because it's not as painful. But the process of clearing, the process of cleaning can be painful. But here's the thing, if we avoid it and don't do it, it gets worse and more painful without even trying to clean it, right? So we don't want to do that either. Don't leave it alone. And Iona says, yeah, we feel each other's ick. Yeah, sorry about that. And it's always good. Our intentions are lit. True that. True that. And the human might take us in defensiveness back, but I catch myself now and no love is needed back. So thank you. And thank you. I appreciate that. Oh, that spiritual awakening video was so funny and relatable. I thought so too. It's like I almost want to share it every day because life, life. Rebecca says, "Hello, love. Hey, Rebecca, how you doing? Thanks for hopping on." So we are talking about communication today in our self-care challenge, because communication is the C that I use on my acronym for self-care. So if you spell it out, again, I want to do visuals. I could put them up here. The C in self-care is communication. So we were talking about, like, I don't know how long you were here, Rebecca, so forgive me if I'm repeating myself, but I was just trying to catch up. Talking about like assertive or passive aggressive or aggressive communication, not only with others, but with ourselves, like listening to ourselves or listening to God, source, creator, and then listening, because listening being a part of that communication, and also I think you were on when I've talked about this before. Um, do we listen actively or do we listen reactively, right? So I talked again about feeling in reflection, feeling like that cat ready to pounce, like you're just listening for a keyword to go, ha, gotcha. Or I laugh now. I'm sure other people weren't laughing that were on the receiving end of that level of communication, just saying. Anna says the pain in cleaning the cut, right though? It's so true. I'm pretty sure most of you can relate with that, right? With that physical wound and cleaning that out and how painful that is. And then when you think about the healing and clearing process, right? Even on our spiritual level, emotional level, our mental level, like all of it. It's not always easy. We always think, oh, love and light, and that's wonderful. And yes, love and light too. But we don't get to skip the whole process, the whole journey to get to the love and light. We bring love and light in it as we're riding the roller coaster and as we're cleaning out the gunk and as we're shifting our energy, right? Oh yeah, the banner. Yeah, I could do that, couldn't I? I wonder if I have any ready. I don't think I've updated with the new. I probably could here real quick. Because I'm looking at it right now, not that you all can see it, although you will see it in 1 minute. Stick it in there really quick. Save and show. Boom, there it is. So I had all but communication on there. So I had your truth for the best you, throat chakra, and relationship freedom for Relationship Freedom Fridays. And now we have communication. So there's all the words that are used in our acronyms. So again, self-care, the C in self-care, communication, the Y in best you, your truth, all governed by the throat chakra, And then in cheers to financial freedom, the R in that acronym is relationship freedom. Got it. Okay, so I'll try to leave that up. How's that? Did I miss anything, Iona? I feel like we covered it. I've been on a half hour already too, haven't I? So homework, oh my goodness. And I didn't say it, did I? I put it in my blurb and I didn't say it, you guys. My self-love movement is the foundation of this part of my journey, probably all of my journey, to be fair, this lifetime. But to incorporate that in my light work, right, has been the self-love movement. And in that self-love movement, I've been stating, because I fully believe that if we all loved ourselves enough, suicide wouldn't be a thing. So this is new for me to speak on because because it's sensitive, right? And because most of us have been programmed and conditioned to not talk about such things. And we don't talk about suicide and we don't talk about self love. And we certainly don't actually do self love because it's all gross and icky and selfish and wrong, right? No. So here's me showing up to start speaking on it. Let's call suicide out. Let's shine the light on it. Let's get rid of it. All right. Because if every single one of us shine the light on it, speak out on it, give ourselves enough love, it will go away. I just fully believe that. So here we are doing the journaling process on a live to be aware, to assess and align our energy and our emotions and our thoughts and our values and our beliefs and all the great things. Whew. Boom. Right? I just had to breathe after that. The monthly call, movement, and homework. Thank you. So I skipped the monthly call, went straight for the movement. So backtracking. Thank you for that. I'm just being silly because I use humor to break up the energy. So when I feel a little like, whew, and I break it up with some humor, I want to cause it deflecting. And sometimes it is. However, I'm not trying to deflect away from, just trying to ease it up because we are going to continue talking about suicide and we're going to continue talking about self love. And I'm going to continue supporting you in self love and the journaling process and bringing things to our awareness and assessing where we're at and aligning through those seven energies where we are in intentional living, the intentional living codes, cheers to financial freedom, all the things. So our monthly calls, Iona's is the first Monday of the month. Mine is the first Tuesday of the month. Sorry, I just got distracted here. Um, so first Tuesday, Iona, I need to put your link in my description for the call. So I have a link in the description, you may notice, for Iona's YouTube channel, The Soul Legacy TV, where she will walk you through those Cheers to Financial Freedom intentional living codes for that balance in your light work and lifestyle. I have a link there for her free masterclass. However, I want a link. I'm going to put the link in for the call as well. I will put the link for my call in the comments, which is the collective energy clearing call. So we can all get on there together and clear out some energy. What else did you say? Homework. Thank you. So isn't that weird when you bring up those things that are like supposedly so taboo that you've been programmed for so long to not talk about? When you do, it kind of makes you wobbly a little bit, you know? Makes me a little bit wobbly anyway. So homework is to check in with yourself using any of the techniques we talked about today. Journal through them, whether you do it with pen and paper, with an app, online, speaking it, use audio, use video, whether you share it or keep it to yourself, it doesn't matter, but be aware of it for yourself. It's your self-awareness, assessing where you are, not based on what other people think or where they think you should be, but you. Are you where you want to be? Do you communicate the way you want to communicate? Do you listen in the ways that you want to listen? If you don't yet, there's no blame, shame, and guilt. That's perfectly fine, but we set those intentions to do something differently, right? So that we can be in alignment with it. If you would like to share in the group, you can make a post, you can do a live, you can do a video, however you wish. I will put this video in the Facebook group. I will put the video in the guide section. Of course, it is left up on my YouTube channel and also on Spotify, uploading it on Spotify as well. So there's many places you can find the video if you need to recap, pause, listen again, see how you want to check in with yourself, but share it. You can do, if you're on Facebook, do a post on your own wall, tag me in it. That would be cool. That would be cool. Iona says the attempts when they are not meant but successful is huge. Right? And the attempts when they are meant and they're not successful. That one hits. As you know, though. Thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. And again, I will share more of the story, my story and part of my brother's. So for those of you who don't know, I'm building this business with a self-love movement in his honor, in his loving memory. His journey, his experience and his journey doesn't have to be in vain, right? So that's my goal. I can't change any of that, and that part is his journey, but it doesn't have to be in vain. So we can take what we can from his experience and my own and make changes, right? Support each other and make those changes. And it says, I hear the wobble, but I was there not that long ago feeling that way, right? And oh my goodness, I didn't attempt, but I felt low through my spiritual awakening and burnout. It needs talking about. I agree 1,000,000%. Because I too have been in those spaces where I didn't attempt, but man, and I was really feeling like it was time to just check out. Like I felt defeated, that just defeated, like it got nothing. Things aren't what they seem. And sometimes you realize what it actually is, and it kicks your butt. Part of that awakening process. It's rough. So if you're having an awakening, or you're not sure if you're having an awakening, but you think you might be, but then you question it because all you hear about is all love and light, and that's not exactly what you're feeling at all, and you're feeling defeated and beat down and hurt and alone and beating yourself up with blame, shame, and guilt. And well, that is a spiritual awakening, and we're here for you. Seriously. Yeah, sorry, love. Thanks. It's needed to be talked about, and I do think, in all transparency, it's been part of my sabotage to not share, right? There are still fears around sharing that part of mine and his story, because it's his story, but it is also mine, because relationship freedom, right? And communication. And not just me, but I was definitely affected by his journey of the relationship we had as me being his sister. I was definitely affected, just as my mom and my dad and my brother, my other brother, was affected, just like my kids were affected. Like relationships are like a web, right? We are connected and we do affect other people in our lives. So let me go ahead and share this since it's here, and I'll try not to lose my while I say it. But I remember after a very severe usually lethal attempt that my brother made, and he's actually survived it. We had a conversation, and me in my head, and I think there were other people who felt the same in that moment, had so much gratitude, right? Like, he survived it, and we were, praise God, and this, having all this faith, and you know just so much gratitude that he survived it. Except, who wasn't so stinking happy? He wasn't. He told me. It was harder for him, right? Because he wasn't expecting to be here anymore. And he woke up and here he is. So that really expanded my perspective, right? That was really hard to hear. Not gonna lie, it's still hard to process or still hard to think about. But it is what it is. And my thought with that, the self-love movement, because in his mind, he truly believed that everyone that he cared about would be better off without him. I felt that way before, right? Probably, I don't know if you guys want to admit it. You don't have to admit it publicly, but I think it's safe to say that more people who don't say have felt that way before too. Hence my statement and my quote. If we all loved ourselves enough, we wouldn't be feeling like that. We wouldn't have those thoughts, right? So suicide wouldn't be a thing. So thanks for holding that space for me to share. I'm sure that's not my first time I'll be sharing. Let me catch up here. Here we go. Lucky I know what it is. And caught myself right for sure, because sometimes we don't, right? Without that awareness, aware, assess, align. Without that awareness, oh man, I'm so honored to be on this journey with you. And I think you watching me and hearing me has been part of you being able to be more open. I will share my experience alongside you. Thank you. It does help to not do it alone, doesn't it? And we've talked about that before, like behind the scenes in private and openly. And part of that movement and part of our joint vision partnership is to not be doing this stuff alone. So thank you for that. I just like that confirmation of it, right? Good for you. Yeah. We can honor his name, right? Absolutely. Absolutely. Rebecca says, love you. Thanks for being vulnerable. Thank you. Thank you for that, Rebecca. And it says, we do think that that's the way the brain works. It tells us stupid shit. It does. It does. The brain can be so rude, right? The human ego-ness can be so stinking harsh. And that's not for us at all. And it's not true. I know sometimes in those moments it feels true, but it's because the mind is telling us. And then we have an emotion based on what the mind is telling us. But that's not truth. It's not truth. Yep. And I don't know if I repeat this, I repeat it, but I said before that I wish that my brother knew or could feel just just a little bit, a glimpse of how much we loved him. So I think knowing that he couldn't is the part that hurts me the most. Still. So if you're doubting yourselves, please know that even if your brain can't recognize it right now in this moment, you are loved. You are. Just the brain is being rude, but that's not true. Thank you for the hugs. It's deep stuff, isn't it? And if it wasn't deep stuff, it wouldn't be such an important mission, vision, and movement. But here it is, and here we are. So let's do this. 49 days of self-care is not just a talking point or just a thing, right? It's not just a challenge that we throw out on social medias or whatever. It's a real thing. It's real clearing. It's real love for self. It's real compassion, and it's real understanding, and it's real vulnerability, and it's real space that we hold for ourselves. So, yeah, I think that about wraps that up for the day, huh? Relationship. So, for those who don't know, RFF, yes, Relationship Freedom Friday is a thing, 1,000,000%. It is so rude, isn't it? Our brains, like, yeah. Thank goodness we could become an observer of it, like an observer of the human, and not just be sucked into the hamster wheel of that rude brain that lies to us and takes us out sometimes. So, thank you all for being here. If anyone who watches the replay needs, or anyone who's on that I just can't see that it's on, see that you're on, if you are feeling any of the ways mentioned, again, please know you're loved. Please know you're loved by God, Source Creator. Please know that actually you are love. in itself in that energy regardless. Please reach out if you need to reach out. Please don't give up on you. And as an additional support, I wouldn't bank on it only if you're in that space, but as additional support, stay with us on the self-love journey, do the journaling with us, learn some intentional living, because that intentional living helps shift away from the hamster wheel of the rude brain and allows you to set your intention and refocus on what's actually your truth, not the lies of the rude brain. It's a movement, man. Exactly. It is a movement. It is a movement. And it's so interesting because Iona, you had taught me, when you taught me how to do Acuity, right? The scheduling and doing that page where we put our information. And on that page, right, we incorporate the movement and the tribute and loving memory too. And I have my brother's picture there, but isn't it funny, funny, not funny, that I had not shared it really beyond that. Like I finally put it into my brain right now, into the guide that I created, the practice guide for the Reiki course and the energy healing method boot camp. I put it there. And then today, like I said, I just was led. I went onto Canva to update my MMMK actually. And before I started that, I did this video. Like I just saw these, I saw the pictures like in my, where it says uploads that you pull into Canva. And in there, I saw my brother's picture, and in there, I saw these other pieces. So I was just kind of led and started putting them all together and created this little video, right? And I put them in there. So I think that's just it. It's just part of the process. And it's, my highest self, me beating me on the head, not necessarily with a red flag, but, beating me on the head, like, are you paying attention? Are you listening? Like, let's do this and let's really do it. And let's do it how it's meant to be done. Like, quit hiding. Sometimes we hide ourselves, and sometimes we hide our message, and sometimes we just hide pieces of our message, right? And I think, again, I was hiding those pieces. So it's time to not hide those anymore. Love you, billions. I love you, billions. Thank you. Thank you. So again, thank you for staying on here with me. Thanks for watching the replay. Thanks for joining the Self-Care Challenge. Thank you for taking care of you. Thank you again for taking care of you. So much love. Again, you can drop questions in the comments. You can join the calls. You can join us in the groups. Share what you're doing for self-care. I'd love to hear. And until then, I will see you tomorrow. So much love. Bye, guys.